All right.
Right.
Everything seems good to go. Okay. How's everybody?
Yeah, still alive, still pretty good. I cut my hair,
Both
everyone.
frozen.
Yes, we noticed you look frozen.
Hold on, are you frozen? Like our pictures are frozen? What do you mean?
Oh, there he goes.
Oh no, did we lose Rob?
Okay, we are really cursed by
God,
Cthulhu today.
God damn it.
We're cursed by
Um,
Cthulhu.
Rob, you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
You
okay.
both froze just for a minute or so, but
I
yeah.
think, I think you're there's some interference with the call. So today
Definitely
we're
some.
talking about
Mhm.
Call of Cthulhu, an HP Lovecraft story, one that's very famous, I think, because of just the name of it. There's so many media outlets that have taken the name of this short story. Um, so you could, the video game that was made in like 2019. I think is the most recent one. The rule book for tabletop role playing games has the same name. Um, I'm not really sure why it's so prevalent. Maybe because you get to see the monster, because most of the time you don't get to see the monster in H.P. Lovecraft stories. Not, at least not as sort of like as prominent as Cthulhu is. In the, why do you think it's spawned this sort of like feeling and desire to be constantly associated with the H.P. Lovecraft mythos? Why do you think they keep using the name? XJ, do you have an idea?
Yeah, what you mean? Like, why do people use Cthulhu?
No, no. It's specifically because Call of Cthulhu. You see it everywhere. You see that name like taken. Does it sound evocative to
Maybe.
you? I mean, like,
I. Oops.
oh,
So,
Uh,
Rob's.
guys, I think today we are discussing Cthulhu and his curse may be upon us.
That's right.
yeah,
Rob
He's
just
yeah.
went off.
Rob. You're back. Okay.
I'm back. Yes.
Okay, Cthulhu let you go.
Right.
I,
Well, back
I
to my. I'll quickly recap my point that I was making. It seems to me that for some reason, the name of the story is very popular in the media. Call of Cthulhu is like everywhere. The name itself, like it, other medias have taken it. Like there's a video game called exactly the same way. There's the tabletop role playing game. And I
Mm,
guess I think everyone has heard the words Call of Cthulhu and they associate H.P. Lovecraft with it. Why do you think that is? Maybe Rob, maybe you got an idea.
hmm. um, I haven't got an idea of why they've latched onto it without reading the stories, if that's what they're doing. But it gives us an advantage then in this podcast. If there's a lot of people out there who've just got the name and who haven't read the stories, then they've got a treat waiting for them, and probably a big surprise waiting for them as well. I know I was surprised when I first read this author.
Well, were you
Uh,
surprised?
I was expecting a lot of disgusting claustrophobic type horror, being buried alive and whatever.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Um, Whereas, actually, Lovecraft in his best work offers us vistas, vast vistas of. All right, they're terrifying, but they're the opposite of claustrophobic. They're agoraphobic, really.
Hmm. You know what
So,
surprised me? Oh, sorry. Go on, XJ.
yeah, I was just thinking maybe we can have a quick summary of the actual story itself. Some of our listeners might not have read The Call of Cthulhu.
Well, you should. Why are you watching this?
Mm.
No, I'm kidding. You watching?
It's not a
Wow,
story you
Nikki,
can really
you're
easily
being
summarize.
you're being very pushy today.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's the Coca-Cola in me.
Uh,
Yeah, there's not much plot to summarize. In fact, one of the interesting things about the story is Lovecraft manages to do without a lot of his strengths. He's very good at narrative, in my opinion.
Hmm.
hmm.
Spellbinding tension in the narrative, like in Shadow over Innsmouth, where you spend your time saying, "Go on, get out while you can, get out while you can," and it's not so much that in Call of Cthulhu. It's more structured as an investigation where you're piecing
Hmm.
together bits of evidence. It's almost like a detective story.
That's
Well,
right.
it is in a way. Um, and it's very, very good in those terms. But it's unusual. Most of his stories aren't like that.
Yeah, so
I'm gone.
maybe Rob, you can just do like a overall, like just kind of like a what went on kind of thing. We
Yeah.
start
What
with
went on with,
yeah, we start with the nephew of a researcher, the professor. What's his name?
I don't remember. Well, rather than go into names and status of individuals, I just say that the um, the the narrator is trying to understand why. At first, he doesn't believe there's any big paranormal or whatever cause. Uh, why there have been so many outbreaks of sort of frenzy in the world during a particular period, and it's linked in with a strange statue that he comes across of a brilliantly artistic statue of a horrible creature, and this is linked with a place where the statue was found, which was some weird cultish goings on in a swamp in Louisiana. So all these bits and pieces come together, and the final fragment is the narrative of a sailor who, with his companions, found a city that had been pushed up from the sea floor by a quake, and they crawl around this city, and the climax comes when Cthulhu himself appears, and that is a superb rendering of a
We
monster,
lost.
which I won't spoil for the readers by talking much about it. But that's the climax of the story.
Yeah. So I think I will fill in some blanks, mostly
Can
to
I
get my own. Okay, go ahead.
can I say something? Actually, I took it upon my mission to remember the stupid names of these characters because they're just so long, right? So there's Francis Wayland Thurston or Thurston. I don't know how do you pronounce it. I'm not a native English speaker. I'm very sorry, but
You don't sound sorry, Nick.
I'm not sorry.
Oh,
I'm
oh, you're
just
frozen a
putting on
little
an
bit.
act. It's sarcasm, actually. So Francis Wayland Thurston is the main protagonist. And his uncle is the guy who's dead is called George Gamel Angel, who has like no connections name wise to the other guy. So how come he's his uncle? That really never the first time or like the 20th time. Um, and then there was the other guy that Rob spoke of. His name was Henry Anthony Wilcox. So my
Hmm.
only question to the now deceased HP Lovecraft is why do the three main people in your story have to have three names?
Well,
Well, isn't that an American thing?
I don't really want HP Lovecraft to answer that question.
No, he shouldn't. But I, it's baffling to me. I think everything else about the story is great, but the fact that the names of the characters is so convoluted, I constantly had to go back to see. Okay, who does he mean? Ah, right. Okay, I wrote down in my notes that Francis is the guy who's like at the beginning, who's the
Right.
main guy. Okay, right. So he's the one who's being talked about now. Okay, Wilcox, who's that? And then I had to go back on my phone and look like, right, Wilcox, it's the artist guy. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I got really frustrated characters in this book,
I think
in this
it's
short
you.
story.
I think the usual of the monsters, not the names about not the names of the human beings.
Well, being a monster, that is certainly probably the case. It might be reversed for me.
Well, anyway,
Yeah, please go on. Actually,
maybe he was trying to be classy
realistic.
with his names or something like that. I don't know. But I do want to fill in some blanks with the summary of the story, just so to jog my own memory than anything else. So we start off with Francis, whatever his name is, who's
see, you don't remember his name. Sorry, go on.
who's recently came into inheritance from his uncle who died, and the uncle was the one that did the initial investigation
Mm.
into this strange spate, this strange epidemic of fever dreams that was afflicting the artists and poets of Rhode Island. And the more our unfortunate protagonist looked into the story, the more freaked out he become over time. His investigation led him to the cultist in the swamp. I think his name the police inspector who first brought that little carving to his attention. His name was
Yeah.
Lorulu or
Legras.
Rosso? Lagros?
Legras?
John
Legras?
Raymond Legras.
Yes, Lagras.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
that's all
I
right.
remember the names
That's-
of these characters. That is my only contribution to this podcast, apparently.
Seared into your memory, and then from there on, there was just like a slow build up of investigation of pieces of threads
Mm.
coming together, culminating into him going to the home of the sailor Johann, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Gustav Johansson
Okay, yeah.
is the name
Yeah.
of the character.
Norway. Yeah.
To read the
Yeah.
manuscript of the sailor,
Last voyage.
his last voyage. Yes, that's right. And the way he came across that lead to Johann, I have to say, seemed quite a coincidence. It was just like his initial investigation kind of stopped at Lagros, and then he's he just glanced in the paper one day and saw a newspaper report about this sunk ship. And then that's the thread that led him on to Johann. And the story kind of ends with our protagonist, whose name Francis.
This is Will and Thurston. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
protagonist.
Anyway, so the story kind of ends on a cliffhanger because it's sort of meant to evoke a feeling like we don't really know what happened to the protagonist next. Is my summary fair?
Your summary is very fair.
Yeah.
I think, although I was very comedic about this naming thing, honestly, it's not a huge problem. But there is a point that I want to make. If you're an aspiring writer, try your best to at least make it like not that the names have to be memorable. Okay, your characters can be Jack, it can be Mary, and it can be whatever. That you don't have to go out of your way to call them 12 for the guy who's reading it, or the girl, to completely remember it in their head. That's not the point. But when you make every single one of them convoluted, you're gonna have what we just had, right? You're gonna have a problem of trying to remember who they were. And I think all of us have read the story several times. We didn't just read it once and hit record, right? So I think an average person who would have read it, right, would pick up the book, they would have a really big struggle with it. I mean, I suppose there's something about HP Lovecraft's writing that the convolution and the convoluted way he writes things is the appeal. But I don't know, something really irked me about that.
But
So
what about Russian literature? I mean, Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, Svidrigailov and Raskolnikov and
yeah, but that
Shots fired.
that's
Russian. I know it's not a simple name for you, but it is right. That is a very fair point, right? So it could be that this is the reverse effect, where these names are really difficult for me because English is not my first language. So the fact that they have like 3 of them is confusing to me. But on the other hand, sorry, go on.
Oh,
Oh, I
the
think we
curse of
lost
Cthulhu.
Rob. What were you saying, Rob?
Oh, I can't remember. I didn't know I was saying anything. I suppose I was trying to make propitiatory noises, reassure you that what you were saying was quite all right, sort of thing like that.
Okay.
Meaning, what Rob is trying to say in a very polite way is whatever, Nikki.
What?
Whatever.
No, I think. Look, I will
No,
die
no.
on this hill. I think it's a good lesson for anyone who writes a story. You gotta make it just simple enough that people can at least remember it
So
somewhat.
I actually, so this is a great point. Although we are not actually talking about the story itself right now, but that actually is a great point, and I want to support Nikki with that. Um, when it comes to visual design and when we're designing the look of characters visually, we want the protagonist design, whoever are the main characters of the story,
Hello?
their silhouette. Oh,
I think Rob is having some internet issues
oh.
today.
Hello, Rob.
No, there is no return. He's still within the dark
Swallowed
realm.
by the Great O1. Okay, well,
Yeah, I think HP Lovecraft is just mad from the
yeah,
grave that I called him out on the naming of his characters.
I guess I would just continue what I said then.
Yeah, please continue your point.
Yeah, so the silhouette of the protagonist or the main bunch of protagonists, they need to be identifiable from the rest of the cast.
Mm.
The silhouette, the coloring, and somehow, and so it's quite common.
They got a pop.
They got a pop, and so
Yeah,
it's quite
okay.
common to have, for instance, hello, are you back with us?
Welcome back, Rob.
You're back from R'lyeh?
From R'lyeh, I think it's called.
R'lyeh? Rob.
He looks very confused by what he's saying. Rob, are you with us? He's not. He's gone. Please finish your point. What are you saying regarding
So
the
it's pretty
silhouettes of
common,
characters?
say in manga, where you would have a whole cast of very tall characters, and then the main character is this short guy, because he
Right, so
immediately
that he stands out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You see, for
Rob,
instance, Dragon Ball. You like Dragon Ball, right?
I like Dragon Ball. That's true.
The early chapters of Dragon Ball. How tall was Goku?
He's like a kid, isn't he? He's like
Yeah.
this tall. I don't know.
And all the characters around him are like twice his height.
Yeah.
Can you
And
hear
also
us,
his
Rob?
hair is really unique compared to
Yeah,
like everyone else.
Absolutely. Hello, Rob. Can you? Hey, Nikki, would you mind texting him? I'm recording the screen right now.
I lost you both for a while, and now I found you.
Now
again.
you're back. Okay. Well, did you have strange dreams about a dark city with forgotten
strange
symbols?
Geometric angles.
I don't seem to remember my strange dreams very well, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd be writing a lot more stories than I do. Very handy, anyway, to have them.
That's a very positive attitude. I like that.
Can I say there's a really good point in the story, which I think is never like a, how do I say it, like a great thing to learn as a novice writer, or as anyone who wants to create anything with tension. I really like the time when the uncle George Gamel Angel, I'm not sure how to pronounce that correctly. When he speaks to the artist, to Mr. Wilcox, to Henry Anthony Wilcox, and Wilcox starts describing him the strange things that he's seen. Angel is already familiar with some of this stuff, and so he first assumes that Wilcox is some kind of a cultist or something that's there to do something against him, right? So I really like that. I like that, although the main protagonist who's reading all these reports is somewhat completely, he doesn't know anything about what's going on. When we see the uncle, he already has some preliminary knowledge, and because of that, when I first read the story, I was like, oh, why is he so pent up about this? Why is he so scared? Right? Why is he going so emotionally against this Wilcox? Why is he creating this tension? He must be very scared of whatever this man is telling him, and the fact that Wilcox also doesn't understand. I think it's a great scene. I think it's one of the better ones that really sets up tension, in my opinion.
I think I want to draw a point
Mm.
to what you just raised, the tension. One thing that I really liked about the Call of Cthulhu is it's a slow build up of tension. It's a very interesting narrative pacing, because it starts out really slow.
Yeah.
So if I were to describe it in terms of color, there's a very long stretch of slightly gray, because HP Lovecraft is depressive sort of fellow, so there's never going to be anything bright and colorful. And then it gets closer to the middle, where the gray very, very gradually starts getting darker and darker and darker towards the culmination of the whole thing, where it just becomes black and it never lets up. It just kept going black all the way to the end.
Yes, yes. It's an episodic story, isn't it? And when I first when I used to think about it before having read it again, I kind of imagined that there were many sections to the story, and I was quite surprised when I saw the structure of the story. And there's actually just three sections. There's section one, the horror in clay; section two, the tale of Inspector Legras; and section three, the madness from the sea. And that's it. It's all encompassed in those three sections, but it has a feeling of richness that makes you think there should be more, likely to be more sections than that, but there's just three.
Yeah.
It creates this feeling of investigatory fiction that both of you mentioned before, and I think something very masterful that the author does in this particular story is make you feel like you're in Francis's shoes. You're also wanting to find out what's going on. Each section kind of feeding you even more and more information, which gives you a clearer and clearer picture. It's really really good stuff. You really want to know what happens next.
Yeah, we're finding out alongside the protagonist.
Hmm.
And one thing that really struck me was when I was reading it was how similar, like I got really similar vibes to uh, Bram Stoker's Dracula when I was reading the Call of Cthulhu, in the way the story is structured between the two.
Mm.
That has a fairly slow beginning, Dracula as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Entirely appropriately. You don't want to just plunge straight into, Dracula flying around and biting people's necks and so on. You've got to
Yeah.
build up to it.
Okay.
That's my artist impression of what
Right.
Rob just described.
Yep. So
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, go on.
I think the message, if you like, of the Call of Cthulhu for those trying to write stories is be surprising. Don't feel limited by how you start out, because the story ends in the most dramatic possible way, doesn't it? The most absolutely jaw-droppingly dramatic way, whereas it begins in all this careful accumulation of evidence. It begins almost primly, and it's magnificent the way he pulls the rug from the under the reader's feet really at the end, and suddenly shows it the true ghastliness of reality.
Yes.
Well, mm,
Uh, because that's a great point that Rob brought up, because what I wasn't expecting at the reread is how vivid the description of the final moments of Johann and his band of sailors were. Like how vivid
Mm.
is I could see it in my mind's eye as Johann and the sailors were moving through this city. Which, by the way, I actually went and looked up the longitude and latitude that HP Lovecraft provided, and it's
Oh,
right smack in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, closer to the South Pole. Yeah, a little bit closer to South America, but yeah, it was interesting. He didn't just pull numbers out of nowhere. It's like an actual
mm,
spot.
Hmm.
mm,
Uh, uh, anyway, just back to the description. I was actually really surprised because he went to such great trouble to paint the picture so vividly with such clarity, and in horror, that is
a rare
that
achievement.
a rare achievement. It is a
Mm,
very difficult challenge.
mm,
The best horror stories I found tend to leave the details very blurred.
yeah.
It lets the reader fill in the details with their own imagination, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we can't the best person to scare ourselves is really just us.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and I was actually really surprised by HP Lovecraft taking the challenge head on of just like actually describing everything so
Mm,
clearly and then in all the blanks and then we can see
yeah.
everything.
Because
And
he's
the
very
fact that
blatant.
it
Yeah.
was blatant, and the fact that it worked very well, it was successful is well, I mean, this is like good job,
Surprising. Yeah.
good job,
Yeah.
Mr. Lovecraft.
Mm, yep. Pity he had to die at age 47 or so. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, very, very somber point, but yeah, I think the first three authors that we have looked at all died very young, which is, it's a
Mm,
tragic thing of life sometimes.
mm,
Um, the thing with the ending, I have two things to say about it. First, I think when I was younger and I first read the story, I was displeased with the very end because I wanted to know what happens to Francis next. But as I get older, I think the fact that it is left so ambiguous is what's truly frightening, because the man will live every single moment of his life thinking about the fact that he has uncovered the secret information, the secret knowledge. And just because he has uncovered it, people might be coming for him, right? He's done nothing wrong besides read and
mm.
find knowledge. And
Well, it's a first
mhm,
person narrative, so that the narrator's got to still be alive to tell
to
the
tell us.
story, you see.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. I know. And the second thing is, I got the feeling that H.P. Lovecraft was channeling a lot of his own, anxiety of being haunted as a person. He was a very lonely man. So the idea of constantly being isolated from everyone else because he believes that anyone could be coming for him, that might be something that is his own fear, and maybe that's why he made that the end of the story, because for him the most terrifying thing was living the life that he was living because he was constantly terrified. It is quite possible that might be why that is the ending, because that is perhaps the scariest thing of all for someone, to just live in constant fear. I certainly wouldn't want to
Mm,
live like that.
mm, mm.
In
Yeah.
in Oh, sorry, go on. Oh, you were gonna say something?
No, I was agreeing with you. I was
Oh,
agreeing with
okay.
you. I didn't know as much as you do about the fact that he lived in fear.
Well, he said,
Um,
not he, but generally, from what I understand, I may be
mm,
wrong, right? So correct me. But from what I understand, he did not really seek social interaction with the outside world, and part of it was because he did not understand the world around him, and that was sort of like the issues
yeah,
that he had.
yeah, right, right.
So
Well, I know the feeling.
we're talking about Lovecraft at the moment,
The
am I right?
person,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
the person.
Mm, mm,
At least that's my understanding. Like he wrote hundreds and hundreds of letters to all these people, because psychologically he didn't really want to interact with anyone. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's isolationist type of personality. It's very common in people who don't what is it called, for whom their introvert part of their personality is all consuming, right? I think
mm,
he portrayed a lot of traits like that in both in his writing, because a lot of his writing, a lot of the fears that he evokes is the idea of isolation and being hunted. And I think um, we are all mortal people, and if you're writing about fears, you must be experiencing them. So it might be a leap of logic there, Rob. You might be right that he might not be the like in constant fear as I've described it, but at least that is the conclusion I'm getting
So
mm,
if I'm looking at his.
mm.
what's your understanding of H.P. Lovecraft as a person and as an author, Rob?
I think he was a really great science fiction writer, and
Mm,
yet people bracket him in the genre of horror, and a history of science fiction might have a sort of a little mention of H.P. Lovecraft and say, some of his stories were science fiction, as Brian Aldiss does in Billion Years Spree. He's quite good about a lot of things, but he's dead wrong about Lovecraft. He just says a few of his stories might be classed as science fiction. In fact, almost all of his great stories are science fiction. Call of Cthulhu is kind of borderline, but I would class it as science fiction with strong paranormal overtones. But
yeah.
the paranormal is science fiction, really.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, the people like, not people, sorry, things like Cthulhu are just enormously powerful aliens.
They're people. Yeah, they're just a little bit big, a
I
little
mean,
bit big for their size now. I'm just sorry.
okay, but if
Go
you
on,
if you
Rob.
if you go that route, you could say that like any godly being and anything like God of the Ring, God of the Rings, Lord of the Rings, could also be classified as a highly functional alien being, right? So I mean, um,
What
you
about
could
the
really
magic?
bunch in stuff like
What
that.
about the magic, though, means that Lord of the Rings is fantasy, but is there any actual magic in Call of Cthulhu? I don't think so.
I mean,
There's kind of telepathic influence, yes.
oh, you're talking
So,
about the dreams, because I was gonna say
yeah,
like influences of dreams can be considered some sort of like a magical influence. But if you again see, it depends on the way you classify it, right? For
mm,
somebody when they could be reading, they think, oh, this is dark magic that's being projected into his head, and someone who sees the trope all the time in science fiction, like you and I, could say, oh, so someone is telepathically sending him these dreams so he can make the
mm,
statue for the ritual, right? It,
mm.
it's hard. It's a hard line to walk, I suppose. But
Yeah, there's a
he,
lot of overlap, I know, between the concepts. Yeah.
mm, mm. But I agree with you. I think this is a story. This is a how did you say, borderline science fiction story? Definitely. The
Yeah,
fear of the
yeah,
unknown is very
yeah,
science fiction esque.
yeah. I would say perhaps the Shadow over Innsmouth is just on the fantasy side of the line, and um, the Dunwich Horror also maybe, but this one, the Call of Cthulhu, and even more, the At the Mountains of Madness and the Whisperer in Darkness and the Shadow Out of Time, they're all really quite straight science fiction.
Yes, I
Hmm.
mean the origins of Cthulhu and his band of merry fellow things
Yeah.
was quite it's very science fiction. They're
Yeah.
they are creatures from this strange dimension, from strange stars that came down to Earth and bided their time. Something along those lines, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Lovecraft believed that the ultimate reality was chaos, really, didn't he? I just want to read you 5 lines from the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. He says, outside the ordered universe is that amorphous blight of nethermost confusion which blasphemes and bubbles at the center of all infinity, the boundless demon sultan Azathoth. So you think, Azathoth is his fantasy, you know. But then it says, whose name no lips dare speak aloud, and who gnaws hungrily in inconceivable, unlighted chambers beyond time and space, amid the muffled, maddening beating of vile drums and the thin, monotonous whine of accursed flutes. So you think, oh yeah, this is fantasy, all right. But actually, it's just a symbol of total chaos. That's
Hmm.
all it is, really. I think.
Hmm. I mean, I completely agree with you. In a sense, it is all in the view of the reader. If the reader wants to believe it's fantasy, you cannot convince an individual that it is not fantasy. No matter how many facts you bring towards them. If someone
Mm,
has made up their mind on the way they have visualized the story, that is what it is to them.
mm,
But yes,
mm,
definitely. I think H.P. Lovecraft is someone who is a science fiction author in essence. He has
mm,
written science fiction for most.
mm,
And just because it is scary science fiction doesn't mean it isn't science fiction, right?
mm. It's sort of spiritual science fiction in that it's well, like C.S. Lewis in his cosmic trilogy, he links religion with science fiction. In his case, it's the Christian religion. In Lovecraft's case, it's a sort of dire vision of reality being fairly indifferent, either indifferent or hostile, depending on how you look at it. Some stories go for the indifference, others for the hostility.
The cosmic trilogy of C.S. Lewis, that's Out of the Silent Planet, isn't it?
Yes, that's the first volume. Yeah, yeah. Very difficult to define science fiction. I don't think anyone's done it quite successfully.
It's got to have
Mm.
lasers. Put that on.
It's got to have lasers that
It's good.
stop, that stop, so that they're shaped like swords, which
That's
breaks the
right.
rules,
That's right. Thank
breaks
you.
the
Yeah.
law of nature. Yes.
Yeah. And you can hold this laser like indefinitely next to your face, and everything will be fine. That's
Mm.
another
Yes.
trope of science fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. This is like
Advanced
this is
science,
yeah, good.
when advanced enough, looks indistinguishable from magic.
That's one of the corny sayings of Arthur C. Clarke, who
Right.
every now and again he used to try and be profound. Was actually he was no good at being profound, but he was a very good writer, except when he tried to uh, be philosophically profound, and then he just falls flat on his face.
That is great. A great
Oh
takedown,
man.
Rob. Well done.
Shots fired. Honestly. The back to Cthulhu, tangents have been rolled. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen. But
Yes. Our
but
podcast is named that way for a reason.
exactly. The the overarching opinion that I have of the story is it has one of the best possible sides of HP's Lovecraft's writing. I think it encompasses a lot of things that you would say are trademark HP Lovecraft. The horror of the unknown, the feeling of a constant investigation that is ongoing, just unraveling in front of you, the desire to know more, but knowing that, well, the more the protagonist knows, the more he is in danger. And
Mm,
the you know and the feeling of dread when you are finally confronted with the impossible, right? With Cthulhu himself being a creature that is in essence existing within our world, that has risen from beneath the waves. It is an unforgettable image, and I think that this is actually why a lot of these things that I told you about take the name Call of Cthulhu, because it has everything you could ever really trademark about HP Lovecraft. It has so many things that are how do you call it, so knowingly Lovecraft. So much, just like exactly that this is the type of stuff that he used to write. So I think it's a great short story for anyone who has read some of his stories, or someone who's never read it, who's never read any of his stories. I think honestly it's short enough, and it's precise enough, and it's punchy enough to get anyone involved interested. So I believe this is a really great starting point if you want to learn about the writings of H.P. Lovecraft.
Yes, it's very, very well crafted. Very
Yeah.
like I would call it a masterpiece, really.
Masterpiece, huh?
And Rob has frozen himself
In
again
judgment.
in a
He's
picture
frozen
that's
in
very
judgment.
judgmental look.
He's very upset about your opinion.
Yes,
Apparently.
apparently the Call of Cthulhu should not be considered a masterpiece.
Don't put up words in his mouth. We don't know what he thinks.
Okay, well, while we wait for
He's back.
Rob, you're back.
Yep, I'm back. Yep.
So
Yep.
Yeah, I was.
I
don't
was
know.
just on the blink,
Okay.
So I don't know. So I was just saying that I would consider the Call of Cthulhu is very well crafted, and I would consider it a masterpiece.
What do you believe,
would,
Rob? What?
Do you think?
I would recommend it for. I would recommend it for, secondary school English exams any time really. I would say use it in the classroom as much as possible as classic English literature.
Wow. Can I take
I
that
think
as high
that's
praise?
That's better than a masterpiece, honestly. When it comes to praise, if you're gonna use it in teaching kids. So we all agree that it's a good story, right?
Absolutely.
But even a good story has its flaws. Like, I'll list 3 of them. It's Francis Wayland Thurston, Georg Gamel Angel, and Henry Anthony Wilcox. As soon as he fixes that, he should do a second draft. As soon as he fixes those naming conventions, then we'll be fine.
I'm not sure.
I thought they were quite authentic New England names. If you read the history of New England, you'll find it's full of names like that. Honestly,
Nikki, you just insulted everyone on Rhode Island. You gotta watch
that. I'm just like the protagonist of the story. I will forever live my life looking over my shoulder.
By the way, that screen on your bed is flickering on and off the whole.
Is it?
No, I was just making you turn your head around to look behind your back.
Look, it is a really minor point, and Rob, you're most likely correct. I don't know. I don't know how New England names sound. It's just really maddening to me that they're really hard to remember. That's it. It's a personal preference.
Not just New England, but American names in general. Been reading about Abraham Lincoln's cabinet. Salmon P. Chase, salmon as in the fish. P. Chase.
Whoa, Rob, you're on a roll today. I like it.
I'll die on this hill. He should change the names.
Okay. Well, I mean that's
actually
Ulysses
Grant. Well, Ulysses Grant think of that Ulysses Simpson grant, but in his administration there was a Secretary of State, Hamilton Fish.
It's not stopping. He's a machine of death today. What were you saying, XJ, before I
No,
was
I think
destroyed?
it's actually a fair criticism. The only character I remember from the Call of Cthulhu is Johann and Lagros, the inspector, to be honest.
Hmm.
Yeah. Those were the
There's
only
nothing.
ones whose names stuck in my mind.
There's nothing. What's it called? It is not a criticism of realism or the writing itself. It's more like I suppose it's a pretty basic sort of way of looking at it. And hence why I think Rob is defending it righteously. I think he's making a good point on the fact that this is authentic writing and there's nothing wrong with it. It is just.
I think it's important if you're going to
Mhm.
write about.
Swallowed up by the great O1.
He's gone.
Oh, you're back.
Sorry, everyone at home. Rob, what were you saying?
I'm just saying, if you're going to write a story about
Uh-huh.
New Englanders, it's professors, especially. It's best not to call them Fred Smith or something like that. Just wouldn't be believable.
It's true. It's true. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. I still hate it, but he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right, man. We seem to have reached like a natural break in the conversation about Call of Cthulhu.
Yep.
In summary, read the short story, guys.
Mm. Read it, yes, and then read all his other stories as well. Well, not all of them. Don't bother to read some of the stupid ones, like The Lurking Fear. Don't bother to read that one.
Okay. Rob's read it so that you don't have to.
Don't have to. Dude, we should do that as like a as an ending section to the podcast.
We read it so you don't have to.
Don't have to. Yeah. If it's a really bad thing that we went over, like if we really didn't like the story, that's what we could say.
Okay. Well,
As a,
that's a great suggestion. Maybe we'll do a bad short story one of these days, like a horrible one.
I can write one. I should like very easily.
Yeah.
Give me 2 seconds. I'll write you a 5-page bad short story.
Okay, we'll take you up on that challenge.
Oh God. What if like I try to make it bad, but it turns out to be good? Is that possible?
Well, then
Yeah,
you.
like you said, the producer. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say, Rob? Can you repeat that?
Just what just what our Russian friend here said about making it bad and then finding it's good. It's like that in that film, The Producers. That's all.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a great ending. It's a great chat, you guys. Quite funny, I found it, even though we're talking about a horror story.
Gotta lighten the mood somehow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so tune in the next time, guys. I'm talking to you, the audience, right now. Tune in to our
not
next
tuning.
episode. Yeah, okay, I'm so bad at it. Why don't you take it away, Nikki?
I didn't say anything. What? I was just making a joke. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed it tonight. And honestly, it's a great story. Go read it. I don't know what we're going to talk about next time, but I'm sure it's going to be just as exciting as today. Take care.
The Slavans must play.
I
That's
am
right.
going to just hand the closing and opening to you from now on, Nikki. That's it. All right.
Well, I
okay.
need a raise in my paycheck then. All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care.